Hi everybody. Today I'm doing a tag for Tag Tuesday. And yes, it is Monday, but it's getting late in the day on Monday. So a lot of you will see this the morning of Tag Tuesday. I got my notes written down here. For a change, I'm not going to hold up a lot of books this time. I'm just going to talk about them. It's a long tag, 15 questions. The mid-year book Freakout tag 2023, which supposedly fun, for whatever reason, must have forgotten to mention me and tag me in his description. I don't know why, but I'm sure he meant to. So I'm going to go ahead and make the video as if he remembered because, I don't want him to feel bad or anything. So, question number 1. Best book you've read so far this year. The Quiet American by Graham Greene was fantastic. I don't put too much thought into star ratings, but 5 stars, baby. Wonderful book. I saw the movie several years ago, probably a decade ago. I loved the movie. I did not expect to enjoy the novel so much. Clifford Lee Sargent over at Better Than Food described it as the perfect novel. And I don't always agree with his assessments of various novels. For example, he loves Crash by J.G. Ballard, and it's probably the worst book I've read all year. But when it comes to The Quiet American, we are of a like mind. Question number 2. Best sequel you've read so far this year. Star Trek, The Return. So, if you're not really familiar with the Shatnerverse, it's a series of 10 Star Trek novels set after the movie Star Trek Generations, in which James T. Kirk was killed off. And in this series of books, Captain James T. Kirk is returned to life and has further adventures in the 24th century. And usually he gets to one-up the crew of the Star Trek Next Generation several times throughout each novel. The first of these novels is called The Ashes of Eden. The Return is actually the second of these novels. And The Ashes of Eden is the one novel in the Shatnerverse that does not take place after Kirk dies. It takes place after his last voyage, after Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country. So it's a really great novel. One of the things about Star Trek that's always interesting to me too is a lot of times you'll have a bad guy or a character that you've never seen or heard from before. And there's an admiral in this particular novel who's apparently an old rival of Kirk's. And even though they've made all these movies and all these episodes, we've never heard of him before. Karavik was his name, or Androvar Drake was his name. Anyway, I haven't read The Ashes of Eden in a long time, but I just want to point out that Star Trek The Return is the second book in a loose trilogy that starts with The Ashes of Eden, which is the first book in the Shatnerverse novels. Number 3, new release you haven't read yet, but want to. I'm a huge fan of author Matthew Norman, and his new book is called Charm City Rocks. I really want to read that, just because every book I've read from him was funny and, usually kind of sweet. Also, I'm interested in a movie. I'm not interested in a movie. I'm interested in a book called The Vegan by Andrew Lipstein. I have a daughter who's a vegan, or she's a recovering vegan now, I think. But it was something I thought she'd be interested in because apparently it deals with themes of how to live a good life. Dinner party goes wrong. Somebody decides he needs to change the way he lives his life. I'm guessing he becomes a vegan. But when you read the plot description of the novel, there's really not a lot in there about veganism or eating. So anyway, I'm intrigued by it. It might be terrible, but I still want to read it. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of this year. I don't have an answer for this. My finger is not on the pulse of upcoming releases. If you got something you would like to recommend to me that's coming out in the second half of this year, please let me know. Number 5, biggest disappointment this year. That would be a novel called Crash by J.G. Ballard. I talked about it in a previous video. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. I did like the movie, which I understand is fairly faithful. But I do like David Cronenberg, and I did like the movie Crash. I like James Spader. I like Holly Hunter. But no, the book was just a drag. It was a struggle to get through. Number 6, biggest surprise this year. My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I thought it might be fun or cute or whatever, but I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. I was really impressed. It works really well as a teen buddy comedy. but it also works really well as a horror book about exorcisms and exorcists. So if you get a chance to read it, it's really quirky and new and fun. I recommend it. I'll be looking out for more Grady Hendrix books. Number 7, favorite new author. I've got 2 of them on here. Number 1 is Graham Greene, of course, because when you've read the perfect novel, The Quiet American, by an author, you want to read more of his novels. But I also had Max Gladstone here down on my list. Max Gladstone, I was really skeptical of because I did not like This Is How You Lose the Time War, even though I seem to be a lone voice crying in the wilderness about how awful that book was because everybody else loves it. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I need to reread it. I don't know. I didn't like it, but Max Gladstone co-wrote that novel. But Steve Donahue recommended Last Exit. I had to look at it. Sorry. I've got medications that, cause mad cow disease. But anyway, Last Exit was on Steve Donahue's list of the 10 best science fiction and fantasy books of the year for 2022. And it was absolutely dynamite. I was really, really surprised and pleased at how much I enjoyed that. 8, newest fictional crush. I don't have any new fictional crushes. I save all my crushes for the female booktubers of my acquaintances, and I have crushes on every one of them. So, there's no point in bringing up any specific names. It just hurt their feelings. Number 9, newest favorite character. Thomas Fowler in The Quiet American is my newest favorite character. He is played by Michael Caine in the movie, and he's terrific. But if you took the word newest out of there, you knew who it had to be. You knew who my favorite fictional character had to be. And he has been for decades. That's right. Captain James Tiberius Kirk. Number 10, book that made you cry, the saddest book you read this year. I didn't read a lot of sad books this year, but I found the ending to My Best Friend's Exorcism particularly touching. It moved me, and I didn't expect that. I expected something much lighter than what I got. And there's a lot of lightness in the book, but there's also a lot of heavy stuff in the book. But it deals with the passage of time and the changing natures of friendships and just the beauty of friendship in this, all too brief life that we live in such a way that actually got to me. I can't recommend My Best Friend's Exorcism highly enough. It's probably not for everybody, but give it a try, man. If you like horror books, give it a try. And if you like horror comedy, give it a try. Number 11, book that made you happy. I just reread The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett, which I read last year too. Another recommendation from Steve Donahue. This book was written, and it's a very short book, 120 pages. It's actually a novella rather than an actual novel. You can read it in an afternoon or a morning. But the premise of this book is that Queen Elizabeth, and this was written while she was still alive, of course, Queen Elizabeth suddenly becomes a reader, like you and I are readers, okay? And how does that change how she functions as queen? And anyway, it's great. It's one of those books and books about reading that people who love books love to read. And it's short and witty and funny and thoughtful. It's just a terrific little book. If you get a chance to read it, you should. Number 12, favorite book to film adaptation. I was stumped on this one because I'm not keeping a log of the movies that I've seen this year, and I've watched a lot more TV than movies. But then I remembered I watched A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks, the other day. And I had seen the original European version of it, A Man Called Ove, which is the same name as the book, A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman. I'm a pretty sentimental guy. My daughters make fun of me for crying during movies, especially at Christmas time when I'm crying during It's a Wonderful Life and stuff. And Frederick Bachman gets me in the feels every time, man. I can't help it. So, I mean, if you're like me and you appreciate something that's going to affect you emotionally, Frederick Bachman's pretty hard to beat. And this film version of A Man Called Otto, I think they nailed it. I think they got every detail of it perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. Number 13, my favorite book review or my favorite video. Okay, so I don't do a lot of book reviews. I think I've done 5 total on this channel in the last 2.5 months. But my favorite video is how to read 1,000 books a year. For one thing, it's got the most page views of anything I put up. Also, it's really funny. And I've had a nice audience reaction to it. You know, my audience, my buddies. is more accurate. But someone told me, I don't remember who it was, they might have even mentioned it in the comments, that they thought it was really funny how surprised and horrified I was at the Booktube guy who claimed to be reading 1,000 books a year. But I was surprised and horrified. That was not a fake reaction at all. I was like, what the hell, man? Number 14, most beautiful book acquired this year. The Penguin Classics edition of The Quiet American that I got is really lovely, and there's a beautiful piece of artwork on the cover. You know, it's a paperback, but it's an honorable mention because I also got a copy of The World According to Garp 50th Anniversary Edition, which is just beautiful. I haven't even taken it out of the shrink wrap yet, but it's one of those books I intend to reread by the end of the year, which segues nicely into number 15. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Well, first of all, I set a goal of reading 100 books this year. I've read 31. So I need to read 68 books in the next 6 months to achieve my goal. Luckily, I'll take this goal particularly seriously, you know, but I'm confident. Normally I read about 50 or 60 books a year. You know, sometimes less than that if something's going on, sometimes more than that. I'm almost homebound these days because of my health, so I'm reading a lot more lately. But I've got all my books on my to-be-read stack over here on a single shelf, so I can just look over here and name some of the ones that I plan to read by the end of the year. Of course, I got to mention, I'm reading Lonesome Dove right now with Evening Reader, Priscilla. She's terrific, and I haven't been feeling well for a while now, so I've kind of fallen out of touch, but we've been buddy reading it, and we are going to make some videos about this book. I promise. Little Big by John Crowley is one of the books that I'm planning to read this year. Dracula by Bram Stoker. Never Let Me Go. I can't pronounce the author's name. I've got a collection of short stories called A Literary Christmas. Wolf Hall is on my list. Jonathan Strange and Dr. Norrell, Dr. something. I don't know. It's real famous. It was a gift from a friend. It's historical fiction. I have a historical novel that I've read maybe a chapter of, but I'm definitely going to finish it, called Finale, a novel of the Reagan years. And from the same author, I have A Book of One's Own, which is a book about various literary diaries, and I'm absolutely in love with that book. I fully intend to finish it. Amor Towles, The Lincoln Highway, I haven't read yet. I'm looking forward to that. The Businessman by Thomas M. Dish is one that I want to read. What does that say over there? Okay, I can't read it. My vision's going too, so that makes it a little tougher. The Princess Bride is on my list. The Illuminatus trilogy. The Weird Sisters. The Weird Sisters is a really cool novel because it's about 3 women and their father is a Shakespeare professor. And so they all quote Shakespeare all the time to each other, which I think is a really cute little conceit. I'll probably read the horror stories of Robert E. Howard. I will definitely be participating in Michael K. Vaughan's event where we read the complete works of Conan, which, you know, will be a reread for me because, of course, I've read it before. The Radleys by Matt Haig. Matt Haig. Okay, so I've read one of his books. I wasn't that impressed, but I'm going to go ahead and give the Radleys a try. Guy's obviously a big movie fan. So we'll see, though. About Schmidt is on my list. I don't know the name of the author, and I can't read it from this far away. I got a whole stack of adventure novels. What's that one over there? It's Madame Bovary is on my list. Anyway, I got a whole mess of them just stacked up all over the place around here. I need to finish The Lost World. I've got, heck, 36 Star Trek novels. You know, you can watch my video about that. But anyway, okay, so this has been, I wanted to see how fast I could do this video because it had so many questions. And you could really turn this into an hour video easily if you wanted to. But I just can't imagine anybody wants to watch me talk about books for a whole hour. Maybe y'all do. I don't know. But anyway, I thought I'd keep it as short as I could. But I am going to tag some people for Tag Tuesday. First, I'm going to tag Steve Donahue because he's always complaining that he's a pariah, a leper. You ain't a leper to me, brother. Supposedly Fun was the one I got the inspiration to do this for. I'm going to tag Revenant Reads because he's cool. I'm going to tag Micah Cummins because he's also cool. I'm going to tag Moonlight Library and Evening Reader. They're both really cool too. And you know what? I probably spend as much time watching booktubers as I do reading every day. And so I don't want to list everybody I watch in my list of people that I tag. So I'm just going to stop there. But, you know, if you know me or are acquainted with me or we watch each other's videos and comment on stuff, please consider yourself tagged too. And that is it for this video. And I'll leave a whole bunch of stuff down in the description, including a list of all the books that I mentioned, the people that I tagged, and I'm sure I'll think of something else to put in the description. But anyway, until my next video, I'll see ya.